So it's Monday, January 19th at 11:52. I know we cutting it late. I just got back to the crib. I really wanted to go ahead and get into what we were talking about yesterday. It was the 4 things you can do to lick health excusitis. So that's what we covered in the closet. And we're gonna cover actually that today. Go ahead, I'm gonna put the timer on right now. See, 15 minutes, y'all. 15 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and do it, and let's get it. 3, 2, 1. All right. So as y'all heard from yesterday, we're in chapter 2, and the chapter 2 is cure yourself of excusitis, the failure disease. So right now we are on page 31, and it says 4 things you can do to lick health excusitis. The best vaccine against health excusitis consists of these 4 doses. All right, so number 1, refuse to talk about your health. The more you talk about an alignment, even the common cold, the worse it seems to get. The worse it seems to get. Talking about bad health is like putting fertilizer on weeds. Besides, talking about your health is a bad habit. It bores people. It makes one appear self-centered and old maidish. Success-minded people defeat the natural tendency to talk about their bad health. One may, and let me emphasize the word may, get a little sympathy, but one doesn't respect and loyalty by being a chronic complainer. I mean, a lot of people is chronic complainers, though. I ain't gonna lie. Like, when you complain so much, bro, you realize that you're not getting nowhere. Like, you complaining, it's not gonna do anything for you. It's not gonna move you forward. It's only gonna push you 5 to 10 steps back. Like, literally. All right, so number 2 says, refuse to worry about your health. Dr. Walter Alvarez Immortized. So let's actually look this word up, because I've never heard of this word. It says emertitus. Emertitus is a former holder in the office. But how do you say this? How do you say this word? Oh.
Emeritus.
Emeritus. Hold on, let's see it.
Emeritus.
Okay, emeritus. So number 2 is refuse to worry about your health. Dr. Walter Alvarez, emeritus consultant to the world-famous Mayo Clinic, wrote recently, I've always begged warriors to exercise some self-control. For instance, when I saw this man, a fellow who had convinced he had a deceased gallbladder, although 8 separate X-ray examinations showed that the organ was perfectly normal. I begged him to quit getting his gallbladder x-rayed. I had begged hundreds of heart-conscious men to quit getting electrocardiograph. How the freak do you say that? Hold on. Electrocardiographs. Oh, electrocardiographs. I'm tripping. I know this word. I begged hundreds of heart-conscious men to quit getting electrocardiographs made. All right, that was number 2, y'all. All right. Number 3 is be genuinely grateful that your health is good as it is. There's an old saying worth repeating often. I felt sorry for myself because I had ragged shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Man, instead of complaining about not feeling good, it's far better to be glad you are healthy as you are. Facts, bro. Because I'm telling you, somebody literally can be in a worse position than you, bro. Like, y'all don't even understand, bro. Like, y'all, that means that basically y'all gotta be grateful, bro. Gotta be grateful. It's far better to be glad you are healthy as you are. Just be grateful for the health you have is powerful vaccination against developing new aches and pain and a real illness. And number 4, remind yourself often it's better to wear out than rust out. Life is yours to enjoy. Don't waste it. Don't pass it up by living Don't pass it up by thinking yourself in a hospital bed. Facts, bro. All right, number 2. But you've got to have the brains to succeed. So this is the intelligence excusitis. So intelligence excusitis, or I lack brains, is common. In fact, it's so common that perhaps as many as 95% of people around us have it in varying degrees. Unlike most other types of excusitis, people suffering from this particular type of malady. How do you say this? I think it's malady, but we're gonna see. M-A-L-A-D-Y, malady. How do you say this? Malady. Okay. Type of the malady. And malady means what? Disease or... Okay. So a disease. Okay. Any type. So for if you didn't know what that word meant, it would be, unlike most other types of excusitis, people suffering from this particular type of disease or malady or malady. I'm tripping. It's not malady, it's malady. So that's like another word for disease. Another type of there's another new word. So another word for disease is malady. So from this particular type of malady, suffer in silence. Not many people will admit openly that they think that they lack an adequate intelligence. Rather they feel it deep down inside. And most of us make 2 basic errors with respect to intelligence. Number 1, we underestimate our own brain power, and 2, we overstimulate the other fellow's brain power. Because of these errors, many people sell themselves short. They fall to tackle situations because it takes a brain. But along comes a fellow who isn't concerned about the intelligence. He just gets the job. What really matters is not how intelligent you have, but how you use what you do have. The thinking that guides your intelligence is more important than the quantity of your brain power. Let me repeat, for this is vitally important. The thinking that guides your intelligence is more important than how much intelligence you may have. In answering the question, should your child be a scientist, Dr. Edward Teller, one of the nation's foremost physicists, said a child does not need a lightning fast mind to be a scientist, nor does he need a miraculous memory, nor is it necessary that he get very high grades in school. The only point that counts is that the child have a high degree of interest in science. Interest, enthusiasm, is the critical factor even in science. With a positive, optimistic, and cooperative attitude, a person with the IQ of 100 will earn more money, win more respect, and achieve more success than a negative, pessimistic, uncooperative individual with the IQ of 120. Dang. Nah, facts though. Facts. You gotta be positive, optimistic. You gotta have that drive. So facts though. Just enough sense to stick with something, a chore, a task, a project, even until it's completed or paid off, or even if it pays off. Much better than the ideal intelligence, even if ideal intelligence be of genius caliber. For stickability is 95% of ability. At a homecoming celebration last year, I met a college friend whom I'd had known for about 10 years. Chuck was a very bright student and was graduated with honors. His goal when I last saw him was to own his own business in western Nebraska. I asked Chuck what kind of business he finally established. Well, he confessed, I didn't go into the business myself. I wouldn't have said this to anyone 5 years ago or even 1 year ago, but now I'm ready to talk about it. All right, let's see what he's gonna say. As I look back at my college education, now I see that I became an expert in why business idea won't work out. I learned every conceivable pitfall, every reason why a small business will fail. You've got to be, how do you say this? am am Ampable. How do you say this? You have to be more than enough. So what is the? How do you say this though? Um, Hold up, my phone tripping. Um, how do you?
Ample.
Ample, and that means plentiful or a large amount of. So you've got to have an
Ample.
ample capital, meaning you have to have a lot of capital or a more than enough amount of capital. Facts. You definitely do in business. You do have to have quite a money set aside to invest and stuff. So that is correct. Be sure the business cycle is right. Is there a big demand for what you will offer? Is local industry stabilized? 1,001 things to check out. The thing that hurts most is the several of my old high school friends who never seemed to have much on the ball and didn't even go to college now are very well established in their own businesses. But me, I'm just plodding along auditing freight shipments. Had I been drilled a little bit more in why a small business can succeed, I'd be better off in every way today. The thinking that guided Chuck's intelligence was a lot more important than the amount of Chuck's intelligence. Why some brilliant people are failures. I've been close for many years to a person who qualifies as a genius, as high abstract intelligence, as and is Phi Beta Kappa. Despite that very high native intelligence, he is one of the most unsuccessful people I know. He has a very mediocre job. He's afraid of responsibility. He has never been married. A lot of marriages end in divorce. He has fewer kids. People bore him. He's never invested in any property of he's never invested any property of kind. He might lose his money. This man uses his great brain power to prove why things won't work rather than directing his mental power to searching for ways to succeed. Because of the negative thinking that guides his reservoir of brains, this fellow contributes little and creates nothing. With a changed attitude, he could do great things indeed. He has the brains to be tremendous. He has brains to be a tremendous success, but not the thought power. Another person I know well was indicted into the army shortly after the PhD degree from leading the New York University. How did he spend his last 3 years in the Army? Not as an officer, not as a staff specialist. Instead, for 3 years, he drove a truck. Why? Because he was filled with negative attitudes towards fellow soldiers. I'm superior to them. Toward any methods and procedures. They're stupid. Toward discipline. It's for others, not me. Toward everything, including himself. I'm a fool for not figuring out a way to escape this rap. This fellow earned no respect from anyone. All his vast store of knowledge lay buried. His negative attitudes turned him into a flunky. Remember, the thinking that guides your intelligence is more important than how much intelligence you have. My bad, y'all. My camera was dying, but where were we at? And he was doing a bang up job. Was Phil a brain? Far from it. Phil knew to nothing about research technique. He knew next to nothing about statistics. He was not a college graduate, though all the people working for him were. And Phil did not pretend to know the technical side of research. Then enabled Phil to command $30,000 a year with not one of his enabled Phil to command $30,000 a year while not one of his subordinates earned $10,000. Phil was a human engineer. Phil was 100% positive. Phil could inspire others when they felt low. Phil was enthusiastic. He generated enthusiasm. Phil understood people. And because he could really see what made them tick, he liked them. Not Phil's brains, but how he managed those brains, made him 3 times more valuable to his company than men who were ranked higher on the IQ scale. Out of every 100 persons who enrolled in college, fewer than 50 will graduate. I was curious about this, so I asked the director of admissions at the largest university for his explanation. It is not insufficient intelligence, he said. We don't admit we don't admit if they don't have sufficient ability. It's not money. Anyone who wants to support himself in college today can do so. The real reason is attitudes. You will be surprised, he said, how many young people leave because they don't like their professors, the subject they must take, and their fellow students. The same reason negative thinking explains the door to a top flight executive position is closed to many young junior executives. Sour, negative, pessimistic, depreciating attitudes rather than insufficient intelligence hold back thousands of young executives. As one executive told me, it's a rare case when we pass up a young fellow because he lacks brains. Nearly, it's always attitude. Once I retained by an insurance company to learn why the top 25% of the agents were selling over 75% of the insurance, while the bottom 25% of the agents sold only 5% of total volume. Thousands of personnel files were carefully checked. The search proved beyond any question that no significant difference existed in native intelligence. What's more, differences in education did not explain the difference in selling success. The difference in the very successful and the very unsuccessful finally reduced to the difference in attitudes or difference in thought management. The top group were worried less with the top group was worried less, was more enthusiastic, and had a sincere liking for people. We cannot do too much to change the amount of native ability, but we can certainly change the way we use what we have. Knowledge is power when it's used constructively. Closely aligned to the intelligence excusitis is some incorrect thinking about knowledge. We often hear that knowledge is power, but the statement is hardly half true. Knowledge is potential power. Knowledge is only when you put to use, but only when the use is made of its constructive. So you gotta be constructive. You gotta. It's like knowledge is only half of that. Other half is putting in action. Constructing that you can put the knowledge to get used. If that makes sense. The story is told that the great scientist Einstein was asked how many feet are in a mile. Einstein simply replied, "I don't know. Why should I fill my brain with facts I can find in 2 minutes in a standard reference book?" Einstein taught us a big lesson. He felt it was more important to use your mind to think than to use it as a warehouse for facts. One time Henry Ford was involved in a liberal? I think this says liberal. We're gonna see. Liberal. Libel. I think it's libel. Libel. So libel is a form of defamation, damaging someone's reputation. Libel. So it's libel. Was involved in a libel suit with the Chicago Tribune. The Tribune had called Ford an ignoramus. How do you say that word? Ignoramus. Hold up. Come on, phone. Stop tripping. Bro, okay. My phone's acting tripping today. Hold up. Ignorant. So it's like ignorant.